Warning, the first part of this video discusses self-harm and suicide. The website where Mike performs humiliating acts for money, Dumb Dummies, is not unlike the talent show Hot Shots from the season 1 episode 15 Million Merits. And this connection foreshadows how common people end similarly to that iconic early Black Mirror episode, with the protagonist threatening to kill himself using a sharp object. Of course, there are vast differences between the lives and respective fates of season 1's Bing and season 7's Mike. Most notably, Bing gets swallowed by the system as he stars in his own show, and while this happens to Mike temporarily through Dumb Dummies, he eventually opts all the way out of being a cog in the machine. However, both characters are essentially slaves to a system in which they have no choice but to participate, or suffer the consequences. And despite their differences, both Bing and Mike zero in on the most visceral method of suicide as their last resort. In fact, Bing's fate is similar to that of not just Mike, but Amanda as well. Moreover, this connection also underscores the similarities between mainstream talent shows and websites like Dumb Dummies. Whether through private browsing or the TVs in people's homes, the audience's insatiable hunger for spectacle almost certainly leads to dehumanization. The name of the antagonist in episode 2 is Verity, which is also another word for a universal truth or widely accepted fact, and this actually foreshadows the big twist in the season 7 episode Bait Noir. Even though every word that comes out of Verity's mouth is a lie in this world, her quantum computer turns all her statements into irrefutable reality. In fact, technically speaking, Verity never actually lies in episode 2. Instead, her computer manifests situations from alternative universes in which Verity's statements are truthful. From the moment Verity introduces herself on screen, her very name foreshadows how exactly she can bend reality to her will. In addition to this, Verity's last name is green, and that's the color most associated with jealousy, the emotion which Verity uses to gaslight Maria and make her question her sanity. Moreover, as Black Mirror episodes are typically populated by characters with realistic sounding names, the obviously contrived nature of the name Verity Green was already a clue that episode 2 will somehow play with reality itself. In the season 7 episode Hotel Reverie, the big twist is that the AI constructs inside ReDream's virtual production can actually achieve sentience. With Dorothy having access to the details of the real Dorothy's life, the construct of the iconic actress unlocks the full range of human emotion. And earlier in the episode, Kimmy actually drops a big clue that ReDream's tech has always had this potential. As Kimmy explains to Brandy, Dorothy and the other ReDream constructs will talk and behave like real people. So it only stands to logic that much like the previous AI constructs that Black Mirror has featured, the ones created by ReDream could completely function just like real people as well, even though they're confined to their reality. And while Kimmy and ReDream aren't completely aware of this possibility, it's very likely that the actual creators of the AI constructs know their true potential and are willingly using sentient AI for entertainment. On that note, the ReDream team uses computers made by TCKR, also known as Tuckersoft, the same company that created a similar type of virtual tech in the season 3 episode San Junipero. And this was the first real clue that despite the grim implications dropped in the first half, Hotel Reverie is actually the spiritual successor to San Junipero's star-crossed love story. In the episode Plaything, Cameron develops an instant connection to the evolving digital beings known as Thronglets. However, Cameron is only able to truly understand the Thronglets once he consumes LSD, also known as the psychoactive street drug acid. And for those familiar with the history of LSD and social movements in the US, this was a clue about episode 4's final twist, how the Thronglets actually succeed in reprogramming human brains for world peace. But wait, in order to fully understand this episode 4 clue, we need to take a short dive into 20th century history. Back in the 60s, hippie culture gave rise to several LSD-inspired cults, the most prominent and influential of which is the Brotherhood of Eternal Love. A pacifist movement, the Brotherhood saw themselves as agents of God, advocating for the use of LSD to transform society and usher in a new age of cooperation. Through LSD-induced ego death, the Brotherhood hoped to eliminate violent conflicts, a perspective driven by the wars the US was engaged in at the time. The Brotherhood even mass-produced their own form of LSD, which they distributed for free in hopes of delivering people from this limited perception of reality. As a result, members of the Brotherhood frequently ran afoul of the law, which saw them as nothing more than a pseudo-religious organization. In short, Cameron's entire character arc in episode 4 is a dark, pessimistic retelling of the history of the LSD cult that changed American drug culture. So Cameron taking acid actually foreshadowed how the Thronglets would eventually execute a twisted version of what LSD cults hope to achieve. During the very first scenes of Eulogy, Philip can be seen tending to the blooming roses at the garden outside his home. Slowly, Philip trims the branches to ensure that the roses are healthy, but no matter how carefully he trims the roses, he ends up cutting his fingers on the thorns anyway. The roses never come up again in the episode. However, they actually foreshadow not just the significant events in episode 5, but its underlying themes as well. In various ways, the roses represent Philip's journey. For instance, Philip trims unwanted branches from his roses so that flowers can bloom, and this is not unlike how he cut out Carol's face from his pictures, just to preserve specific parts of his memories. Moreover, cutting out Carol also comes with its own painful thorns, leaving Philip with painful, lasting wounds. In fact, just like in the first scenes of Eulogy, Philip essentially tends to the garden of his memories throughout this entire episode. Moreover, the way Philip cares for his roses could have been a clue of his potential to become a father. Just like Carol's daughter, the roses aren't Philip's biological children, and as the roses are clearly well cared for, the garden may have been yet another tragic glimpse of Philip, Carol, and her daughter's unrealized family. In relation to this, Philip was also made to use a device similar to the one Brandy uses in Hotel Reverie, as well as the grain from the entire history of You, and in hindsight, this was already a clue that Eulogy would also be a romantic tragedy, not a Twilight Zone-esque warning about technology, which comprise most classic Black Mirror episodes. Near the ending of episode 6, the digital clone of Robert Daly offers Nan two choices. The first is to upload her consciousness into the original Nanette in the real world, a choice represented by a red floppy disk. Meanwhile, the second is to save Nan's crew by moving them into a safe private server, which in turn is represented by a blue floppy disk. This is a clear reference to the red and blue pills that Morpheus offers Neo in the landmark 1999 sci-fi film The Matrix. Whether in that movie or in episode 6, the red option offers an exit from the simulation, while the blue one leads to the much safer, system-friendly alternative.
All I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
Most importantly, Robert's diskettes actually foreshadow the final choices that Nan fights for in the last minutes of the episode, saving both herself and her crew from the Infinity simulation. Not unlike Neo in The Matrix, Nan fights her way to the creator of her world, and in exiting the simulation, she also begins the liberation of her own people. Moreover, the mundane aftermath of Nan's epic transcendence makes episode 6 a hilarious parody of what Neo achieved in the first Matrix movie. In addition to this, Walt creating an imaginary friend called Rocky is a clear reference to Cast Away, wherein Chuck keeps himself company through the now iconic Wilson volleyball. This also relates to the episode's big twist, as it essentially foreshadows how the clone crew ends up marooned within Nan's mind. And not unlike Wilson in Cast Away, the crew can only be perceived by the sole survivor of the story. So what did you think of the 7th season of Black Mirror? More importantly, did we miss any other hidden clues that somehow foreshadowed an ending or a big Black Mirror twist? Tell us your thoughts and theories about Black Mirror Season 7 in the comments. And thanks for watching Screen Rant.